Most of the techniques in Hwa Rang Tul have already been covered in previous Taekwondo lessons, so check the description below to find out which lesson corresponds to which technique. But there are a couple of techniques which I haven't covered yet, so we'll practice these first. In movement 11, you prepare for a release motion which you perform when you do a side piercing kick in movement 12. And it's done from a right walking stance middle punch position. Basically, you're going to do a side kick while pulling the arm away to do the release motion. So you'll need to bring your elbow forward to approach the opponent. A common mistake is to pull the fist in. Realistically, if the person's holding you quite tightly, holding their weight back, it's not going to be easy to pull in. So the only way you're going to approach them is to bend the elbow. But only bend it 45 degrees, because another common mistake is to bend it too much and then you end up too close to the opponent and then you won't be able to perform the side piercing kick. So as you bring the elbow forward, you need to drag the left leg in, but do it in a way that you show you're holding your weight back, because if you bring it in too easily, they can pull you off balance. So you need to show some resistance, only drag the leg in and resist. And as you do that, bring the palm to your fist, ready to grab your fist. Okay, so you slide the left leg in so that your feet are one shoulder width apart. So this is how you end up in movement 11. Now you're ready to do movement 12, which is a middle side piercing kick, pulling the arms in the opposite direction to do the release motion. Make sure you pivot as you kick and pivot back with the rear leg. And then you do L stance, knife hand strike for movement 13. So practice that a few times. Now another technique worth practicing is L stance obverse punch, which means the punching arm is the same side as the rear leg, because the rear leg carries the most weight. Now the opponent's in front of you, but it's very difficult to punch to that center because you're turned in too much and it's very uncomfortable. So the best you can do is punch 15 degrees out. So the fist will be just outside that shoulder line. Avoid punching wider. For one, your opponent's not there. You're not punching to the side front. But if you do punch to the side front, you'll be very weak with L stance, because the L stance is weak in this angle. It's stronger in a forward back angle. Okay, so this is where you punch. Now in the pattern, you step forward doing this punch. So the important thing is to remember to pivot first and then punch. A common mistake is to pivot at the end, which means your lower half is turning this way and your upper half is turning this way, so it's working against each other. So it doesn't make sense. So if you pivot early, it allows your abdomen to go back and your shoulder to go back, and then you can wind up and throw the weight in at the end of the technique. Okay, so that way you get more mass into the technique. So practice it that way. And now we're ready to move on to the pattern. The starting position for this pattern is close ready stance type C. So you place your left thumb on the main knuckle of your right middle finger, and the fingertip of your left middle finger is placed on the third knuckle of your right middle finger. So your left hand's overlapping the right, and place your hands 10 centimeters from your abdomen. Now move your left foot into sitting stance and perform a palm pushing block, a middle pushing block, like that. So your palm will be in line with the shoulder here. And then you do a middle punch, punching to the center, and another middle punch. So these are done as separate movements, not fast motion as in Yulgo. Now move your right foot in so you can turn to the right and do a twin forearm block in L stance. And then relax the arms, but don't move them too much. Just relax slightly and then do a circular motion to do an upward punch. Make sure the punch is more in front, don't go too wide. You punch about 15 degrees out. Then you bring the weight onto the rear leg so you can slide forward and do a fixed stance punch. You slide about a shoulder width. Then you're going to do a very big circle to do a knife hand downward strike. Try not to use your elbow too much. Get a good rotation from your shoulder and use a little bit of reaction, although you can't use it too much, otherwise the arms get in the way. So from here you stand up into vertical stance, downward strike. So your body's half facing. And then you move forward, but your legs are straight, so you need to bend them to get to a neutral position. If you move forward without bending them, you're going to lose your sine wave. So you relax, bend the knees, and do a middle punch. Then you pivot on the rear foot and pivot again, low block in walking stance, and then follow up with a middle punch. Now here's where you do the release motion that I showed you earlier. You slide in, bring the elbow forward, and now do a side kick, pulling the arms away, and do a knife hand side striking L stance. Then move forward in walking stance punch, another middle punch, and then pivot on the front foot, counterclockwise 90 degrees, perform a knife hand guarding block. Then step forward in walking stance, straight fingertip thrust, do a spot turn, so step in slightly with the right, turn, knife hand guarding block. Now you're going to do 2 high turning kicks in fast motion. So you've got to kick to your side front, which means it's about 45 degrees. Some instructors teach it at 75 degrees, but either way, it's to your side front. So any of those angles are okay. So you do it in fast motion and keep the arms relaxed in front of you as you do the turning kick. Now pivot on the rear foot to turn to your left and do a low block, and then pivot the rear foot into L stance, dragging the left foot, and then doing a punch. So as you do this, you go back, forward slightly, and then you repeat L stance, punch, L stance, punch. Bring the left foot in slightly and square up, and do an X-fist pressing block. Make sure the left arm is underneath. From here you pivot right round, and as you do that, the right arm comes under, extend them a little bit, and then you slide in L stance and do a side elbow thrust, looking behind. So keep your gaze in front all the time. So as you do that, keep the gaze where your opponent will be. Then you pivot on the rear foot. As you pivot, the heels are off the ground. So I prefer to drop the heels as I perform the next technique, which is a side front block. Remember, this arm is just straight, it's not a block, so you keep it straight outside your shoulder. And this is temple level. So to do the next one, again you have to raise the heels to get sine wave and block, but also remember to raise the arm. A common mistake is just to switch like that. You raise it and bring it across. Now, because your legs are straight, you need to bend them to relax, so you get sine wave. So you relax and then do knife hand guarding block. Then bring the feet together and do another knife hand guarding block, but avoid dropping the arms. A common mistake to let your arms drop and then lift them up again. From here, keep them up in a relaxed way and then wind up for the knife hand guarding block. And that's the end of the pattern. And then you place your right foot back to close ready stance type C. So this is how the pattern will look like. Hwa Rang Tul is the 8th of 24 patterns in Taekwondo, and it's practiced by students who are red belt, second cup and above. It's actually the first pattern ever devised for ITF Taekwondo back in 1955. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. There are plenty more Taekwondo lessons to come, so please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.